I'm starting a game development studio. Well, actually, I'm co-founding one, to be precise. This plan has been in the making for quite some time, and as of 2 months ago, it finally happened. Spellware Studios has officially been founded. Now, before you, understandably, start panicking, don't worry, your favorite YouTube channel isn't going anywhere. When it comes to the channel, it doesn't really change anything, it'll remain the same, and it'll be just me for the foreseeable future. Now, as you can imagine, there's a lot of things involved with starting a business. I'm not really gonna go into too much detail here, it's a lot of boring paperwork stuff. Thankfully, I don't have to do everything by myself. I'm co-founding the company with a friend of mine, a fellow programmer whom I've worked with extensively in the past, so I think we're in good hands there. Now, if you are wondering what this means for the game, I can tell you that the likelihood that it will actually release and see the end of its development has just increased dramatically. As a studio, we'll have access to a lot more options when it comes to funding, hiring, and other resources. In the short term though, I haven't been able to do a lot of work on the game as most of our focus is now on B2B work. Currently about 80% of our time is spent on work for hire and only 20% is on the game, but we're definitely looking to expand that in the future, depending on which funding options are available to us. In any case, for now, we are entirely self-funded through our B2B efforts. The most important thing to know is that we are in it for the long term. We'd rather take things slowly than taking massive risks and going bankrupt if this game doesn't work out. Speaking of the game, I want to talk a bit about what the plans actually are for Starfall. Man, we really need to come up with a definitive name for this. So first up, let's do a little mini devlog to get you all caught up, because like I said, the past few months have been a little light on new additions to the game. Basically, we did some experimenting with some projectile abilities and some area of effect abilities. I added a ranged fireball which explodes on impact. There's also a bigger variant of it that leaves a patch of fire on the ground where it lands. Enemies that stand inside will take damage over time. We've also got this very unfinished firestorm ult which also deals damage to all enemies standing inside. There's also a shield in the game now, but I'm not very happy with how it works right now. It drains energy for every HP that is blocked. When you run out of energy, you can't block anymore. We're definitely gonna change how that works, but all of this stuff is kind of placeholder anyway. Also, the animations are all scuffed and they look weird, so ignore that. Then, very last minute, I added in a couple of biomes. I added a swamp biome and some orange mountainy biome. By biome, I'm actually only talking about different terrain generation because I haven't really adjusted the lighting or added custom models for new biomes, so it is kind of lame right now. There's a simple camp point of interest that can spawn now as well. We plan to put some specific mobs and treasure chests here for you to collect and kill. This was all done quite rapidly, so it doesn't look like much. We'll polish this up later, but again, there's not that much point of making it super polished since this is all kind of throwaway content for the prototype anyway. So speaking of a prototype, I wanted to talk to you a bit about what our plans are overall. So I made a rough little roadmap for you guys to illustrate kind of how we envision the milestones ahead. Bear in mind, all the dates here are subject to change, it's just to give a rough indication of what we're thinking. Short term, we want to get a fully playable prototype done before the end of this year. And by fully playable, I mean we are aiming at least 30 minutes of gameplay, hopefully a bit longer, but that remains to be seen. The main goal for the prototype is really to put all of the systems that we have currently together. Right now, we have most of the individual puzzle pieces in place. We've got a rudimentary customizable player character, we've got working stats, items, we have combat with a bunch of rudimentary abilities and effects, we've got simple melee, some variations of different magic attacks, we've got an AoE, we've got a dodge roll, our telegraph system is working as well. We also have building and crafting implemented, we've got basic resource gathering, and we have some very rudimentary creatures. And last but not least, we also have multiplayer working. The main problem at the moment is that these individually prototyped puzzle pieces don't really interact with each other. We haven't set up proper drop tables or proper spawn rates for creatures. In fact, we only have 2 creatures at the moment that can spawn, and they just spawn all over the place and way too often. We have some armor sets and weapons in the game, but there's no way to obtain them without using special slash commands. You can build stuff, but there's no point since we haven't associated proper crafting recipes with their respective objects yet. You get the idea. So for the prototype, assembling all of these separate puzzle pieces into an actual picture is our primary goal, to connect all the dots, to make the game actually playable. Another goal that we have is to prime and verify that all of our tools and systems are working so that they're ready for production. I'd rather catch as many bugs and potential flaws in the game systems now than in production when we potentially have more people working on the game. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna sprinkle in some throwaway content. Probably gonna have a simple camp point of interest that's guarded by some mobs and contains some treasure chests or something. And at the end of the prototype, we want to finish off with a boss boss fight. So we'll probably have something in the sense of you need to find like 5 orbs scattered across these camps. Then you go offer them to some kind of altar to summon the boss or something along those lines. After the prototype, the next milestone, and maybe the most important one, is the vertical slice. The vertical slice is basically about 5 hours of gameplay that is super polished and representative of what the final product will be like. During this year, we're really going to be polishing everything, adding bespoke art, sound effects, and music. In terms of content, we want to have 1 full biome done out of the 6 that are planned for the final release. Bear in mind, our biomes are quite expansive in terms of the amount of content that they contain. Each biome has around 3 microbiomes, which are like small thematic variations on the main biome theme. Like for example, the Ether Bog biome has a Starfen microbiome, a Verdant Marsh, and also the Bloodmire. Each biome contains a procedurally generated dungeon, and we are aiming at 3 bosses per biome. So in terms of systems, the game should already be feature complete at this point. Anything from this point onward is really just adding in more content. For a vertical slice, we'll probably start doing our first public demos and playtests as well. Of course, this is all based on how successful we are on securing funding for the game, and for that, your help as a viewer of this YouTube channel is going to be crucial. So please do consider subscribing if you are at all interested in seeing this game come out eventually. Now, if all of this goes according to plan, we would like to take an additional year to add some more content to the game and then release on Steam in early access. We plan on going into early access with 2 full biomes, meaning 6 bosses and 2 dungeons. That is about a third of all of the content that is planned for the final release, but since this is a sandbox game, it should already be mostly a complete experience by that point. The later biomes will release in patches up until the 6th one, which will be the final release. Alright, that's it for this video. There's lots more to come, and I do apologize if the uploads are a bit all over the place in terms of timing. Someday I will manage to maintain a monthly upload schedule, but alas, that day or month was not this month or the last. Anyway, huge shout out to my Ko-fi supporters Vicente, Spencer, and Pinu. They're the real MVP, shout out to their families. If you want to support the channel, please consider donating via my Ko-fi page. The link is in the description. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.